Hello, 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 hello. Another edition of the Urban Show with Leslie Charles, the mega producer, Kennedy. What's happening?
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We're getting feedback from somewhere. Where is it coming from? Let's
I'm
do a
not.
mic test real quick. Charles, talk to me.
Well, it's Friday once again, really fast.
Yes, for sure.
Good, good, good. Let me see if it's me. Testing one, two. All right, think we're good. So, Kennedy, I was looking at the show notes. You got us another wonderful show for today. I'm going to let you kick it off.
Well, first, I wanted to start off by
That's
saying
you, Kennedy. That's where the feedback is coming from.
Yeah.
You.
me.
Do you have two things open?
No, sir.
Are you using your new webcam or you using the old one?
I'm still using my own one. Let me try this though. Hold on. Do you still hear feedback now?
That did it. No feedback.
All right, all right. But first I want to give a congratulations out to our girls basketball team. They are now SWAC champions. That is amazing. Once again, this is a three-peat. I don't think people realize that.
Yeah, I know it kind of went under the radar, but it is definitely a third time winning the regular season championship in a row.
Yes. And
Uh,
if I'm not mistaken, how long has Coach Reed been here? I think she was here
Four
before I
years, I
came.
believe. Four.
4 years.
Wow, yep. So went 1 year without getting the championship. That's crazy to me.
Well, took her about a year to get everything in place, and now she's rolling. Uh,
Yes.
and they are extremely talented. I see where Rogan made the 1,000 point club, so she is immortal in Jackson State women's basketball history. Uh, and Coach Reed is the only coach in NCAA women's play that's undefeated in regular season.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna work, Leslie, because you got these
Yeah,
boxing.
I hang tight. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm,
Oh,
there you
okay.
go.
Yeah. So beautiful picture, smiling faces. And Coach Reed is right there in the middle.
Right. Third time's a charm. I think that's so crazy. And they definitely fall back. Um, I saw the score at halftime. I wasn't in attendance though because I had to finish a lot of work. But they fought back against you at PB last night as well and ended up with a W as well. So shout out to them. That was a great way to end your Thursday night. They're on a high. And they're actually playing Mississippi Valley today. Well, this tomorrow really at Valley. So we're gonna get another dub. Also, I did want to mention that Kentaji, I don't want to say, but Miss Jackson, she's now officially has been nominated by President Biden into the Supreme Court. That's another big
Katanji.
accomplishment, I feel. Say it one more time.
Katanji.
Katanji. Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. But yeah, she has officially been nominated to the Supreme Court. I think that's a huge historic win for us. Obviously, there's always going to be pushback from press and other political parties, but it definitely is a win in our book. I feel like. What do you guys feel like?
Well, I think it's smart. She clerked for the outgoing Justice Stephen Breyer. Um,
Hmm.
she's very, very, very smart, very composed, very organized, and she's known to be a consensus builder, much in the mode of Justice Breyer. And um, I think she already has Justice Breyer's seal of approval because I heard him talking to President Biden after the State of the Union speech, and he said it was a fabulous pick. Uh, I don't think I don't think he really wanted anybody to hear that because he's supposed to be impartial. But considering it's an interesting dynamic. I don't know if you know, but individuals who are chosen to clerk for Supreme Court justices are part of a small family, and so across generations, across different time spans, they all know each other. They all communicate, and they identify themselves usually with their justice. So she's been widely hailed by fellow law clerks who were with her during that time. She's been even the Chamber of Commerce gave her a seal of approval. So she's very much up to the task, and it's strategic because she's already been confirmed by Congress before. So this is not a unknown commodity. I think she's been confirmed twice at this point. So this will be the third time. And I look for her to get maybe 53, 54 votes. She only needs 50. And in today's time, that's a lot. Now, in the past, it used to be 70, 80, 90 votes for approval. But we live in a different day and time. So, but I think it's positive.
Well, also keep in mind, I don't know if you guys got to tune in last week as I was holding it down while you guys were out, but I kind of went through her background a little bit. And so what some people forget is not only did she graduate from the prestigious Miami Palmetto High School, which is known for its scholarship and legal scholars, and particularly its debate club. And then she went on to undergrad at Harvard and then Harvard Law. So she's also worked across the aisle. She's worked in both for Republicans and Democrats and been endorsed by both sides. So definitely rare breed. She I mean, it's hard not to root for her. She is the product of public educators, and then her dad ended up going to law school as a second career later in life. Uncle's that was the police chief. And then she said, I know there's going to be a lot of talk about when people dig up stuff about that I have a uncle that got into the drug game. And obviously,
wow.
But she said, I'll tell you that right now. So I think just really, really proud of her and her accomplishments. And I think, to me, I didn't know. I had to go do my research. I didn't know much about her. But that's shame on me. I should have.
Well, not really. And here's why. There are so many people that are supremely qualified that you just don't know about. And that's more a fault of our society. I mean, because some of the things that were being said about her were unfair. But she brings not only diversity as the first Black female that will sit on the court, but she'll be the first public defender to sit on the court. And so, I mean, she's bringing diversity of thought, diversity of lived experiences, diversity of public school versus private school. She's seen a little bit of everything. And I think the court needs an injection of good old-fashioned common sense.
True.
And so I think she'll bring plenty of that. Not to say that there are talented justices that are extremely smart that are on the court right now. There are some that we may disagree with, but I believe she brings a whole lot of value to the court.
I can definitely second that. It's definitely going to be some on to newer heights, I feel like, and a good breath of fresh air, honestly, to the court and a different perspective as well on both sides. Because, like you both stated, she did work on the side for Republicans and Democrats. So hopefully she's not going to be as biased, but I do definitely agree she is a good, addition to the Supreme Court. So one of the bills that have been going around is the Mississippi House passes the anti-critical race bill theory, and now it's headed on the governor's desk. This has gotten to a point where I don't know. I never thought this day would come. Maybe I'm just in shock still that this type of bill would be passed, or was about to be passed. But it's just shocking.
Why are you shocked? You sat through my classes, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you know that majority rules, and right now there is a momentum swing with the courts. I mean, not the courts, but the Congress, state houses, and on Capitol Hill in Washington towards these conservative ideas. And what do I always tell you about election time? So they come up with these arguments that work well. Critical race theory sounds good for politics. I
Right.
mean, as you pointed out in your notes, what is critical race theory? And it's not even defined in this bill for Mississippi. So that tells you everything that you need to know. It's a shell game, and it's called anti-critical race theory. So you just basically don't want anything that's negative towards race
The
talk.
Right. Exactly. And I do feel like there's still, it's crazy how they're making so many efforts to sanitize history, but when it's a lot of other issues within the state that I feel like does need to be resolved when it comes to health, safety,
Oh, you
and
mean
just the
serious
environment.
issues? You mean
Like
serious?
serious, yeah,
Yeah.
serious
Oh
issues.
yeah, like clean water, basic stuff. Like
Basic stuff. And it seems like because I have been keeping track of both, and if I'm not mistaken, this bill has surpassed the well, it wasn't really a bill, but they were forced to grant a plan to the USDA for the water infrastructure here in Mississippi, and it's just like, man, what?
yeah, you want them to focus on serious things that affect people in a serious manner. And I'm not making light of history because I think it has a place to be taught. But essentially, what they're saying is the misdeeds of white people should not be taught because of how they affected black people. And that doesn't even sound right.
It doesn't.
I mean, because history is what history is. Whatever happened, let us teach it and grow from it. You can't pick and choose history.
And this debate led on in the Mississippi House for at least 6 hours, going on and on. Different representatives. One representative that I recently interviewed with this past summer, DeKeither Stamps, was also speaking at about this bill. It was just in awe because it was just like, why are we spending so much time on something that should be common sense, like you said? But
Yeah.
common sense ain't always common,
No, especially not in politics.
especially not in politics.
And so here's a teachable moment for you. Critical race theory started picking up steam right around the same time as defund the police. Um,
Hmm.
and same time as George Floyd in Minneapolis. Uh,
Mm.
so it's it's a momentum play. It's not just Mississippi, it's conservative states all over the South. It's tied into the banning of books, tied into parents being able to uh, change curriculums if they don't want their child to read a particular book, that type of thing. So it's a momentum play preparing for the midterm elections.
And it is right here. This is, I want the audience to also realize, like, just pay attention to how politics and media play a huge role. Because, like Dr. Irvin just said, it's a momentum type of play, it's a momentum shift, and it's so close to the elections that I honestly feel like matter the most. But especially besides the presidential election, but this is one of the elections that truly matter, the
Yeah.
midterm elections.
Yeah, and just to go one step further to complete my thought on that, so you can already tell what the Republicans are planning on running on. They're going to run on inflation, saying that um, the price of goods and services is higher. That's affecting everyone. But we know pandemic affected the supply chain. They know that, but
Yes.
because they're trying to regain power, they want to make it an issue that okay, well, inflation is out of control, and it's going to be like the 1990s. I've already heard this started.
Yes.
When
Especially with the war.
the facts just don't line up on that. Why don't the facts line up on that? Because the Federal Reserve fights inflation, and so the jobs report came out today, probably the best jobs report in quite some time. Unemployment is down to 3.8%, and We know coming out of the pandemic, things are getting better. However, now with a war going on in the
Exactly.
Ukraine, that has the potential to affect the price of gas. Well, gas and inflation, when that price rises, that's something that's easy to point to run on.
Mm.
Then critical race theory, the whole blackness argument. We don't want you teaching controversial things that really aren't controversial. Uh, and we don't want you talking about defunding police when really they weren't talking about the defunding of police to begin with. All of these made up things. And then they're going to talk about the weakness of the president because another president who happens to be an autocrat went to war, as if he can make him not go to war.
And it's honestly crazy to me though, because like you said earlier, you've been hearing a lot of it since like the 1990s with the war and things of that such. And it's just like, wow, like I definitely feel the inflation in gas today. When I filled up my tank, I said, wow, I never paid that much for gas before.
Right. But I think on the gas argument in particular, if the president was smart, he would go whole hog on putting sanctions on Russian energy production, meaning halt their energy production. Why? Gas prices are going to go up anyway. But is it worth it to tell the people of America and the Western world why they're going up? It's going up because there's a fight for democracy that is going on.
Exactly. And I
And
want to, keep going, Mr. Dr. Irvin. I'm sorry, keep going.
my final point on that is it worth it for a baby to be killed for a war that shouldn't be being fought? I could pay an extra dollar in gas if it's going to keep that baby safe. Now, why am I doing a better job of communicating that than the White House?
Questions that need answers.
Yeah.
Honestly. And like Miss Owen said in the comments, she said when people know better, they do better. Hiding history leads to more race problems. And I couldn't agree more. And she's actually right. And we've seen that happen these past couple of decades, actually.
Well, here's the thing about that. Y'all talking crossways.
Mm-hmm.
No, okay, so that's an old term, crossways. Here's what I mean by that.
Yeah, you went old school on that one.
Yeah. Let me break that down. Ms. Owens is correct on one hand, and you are correct in agreeing with her. If that was the true issue, that's not really the issue. That's not really the issue. They know their sins. They know Jim Crow. They know all of those things. The bigger issue is this: if we can contaminate the pool and make it seem like they want to teach this liberal agenda of white is wrong and black is right, then that brings back they want the culture war more than policy because they're not really doing any policy. One, two, I mean, what's easier to talk about? A failed record under Donald Trump and Joe Biden getting the ship corrected? I mean, if you have to talk about that, you lose. So
Yeah.
let's create something to talk about. Critical race theory. Get parents in an uproar about books that some parents probably hadn't even read. They don't, you get them worked up. It no longer becomes about the facts. And that's where Democrats lose, in that Democrats try to give you all these bullet points of facts. That's not what it's about. Sound bites, especially with the attention span that goes along with social media and with the 24-hour news cycle. The news is replenished every 15 minutes.
You said an interesting thing there. You know, elections are won in sound bites.
Yeah.
We just had the primaries here in Texas. And, I watched a candidate that I was supporting lose, a very thin margin. We're talking about, under 1%. All right. Well, 2%, 2 percentage points. And the bottom line of it is the competitor understood sound bites. And because most of here's the thing: when you look at and Kenny, this is particularly to your age group and the generation right ahead of you. When you look at Gen Z and new Gen that's coming beneath, you guys like videos. You you used to Instagram. That is the reason why you guys not on Facebook, right? Because you like Instagram, TikTok, and the video interaction. You like to digest it without having to really what I call do the intellectual work of reading it, right? And then visualizing it in your mind. Well, nothing wrong with it, but when you given sound bites happen in that form, that's how you guys process. And sound bites drive you to take a interest in looking deeper. If the sound bite don't get you in, you're not looking. So I
Very
almost
true.
say like I guess in the dating world today, if you ain't got a good sound bite, it don't matter what kind of game you got because you're not gonna get a chance to play it anyway.
Well, here's the second step to that. So our audience is more hip than everybody else. You're right on the sound bite. But what if I told you that the sound bites that you hear and the sound bites that their audience hear are totally different?
Oh yeah, I agree.
So not only is it sound bites, but now you have this foolishness going on in a loop on Fox News or other news stations of their choosing. Well, the problem with Democrats is they don't even consider that. Not only are they losing on the soundbite, but their soundbite is different than the one that's being played on repeat, repeat, repeat.
Right, right. And their sound bites are not contradicting what's being said on repeat and repeat. So it's almost as if, here's the funny thing about it. When I think about how Democrats run elections, it's almost like we don't pay attention to what the competition is doing.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like
That's how it feels.
yeah, that's how it feels. Like we operate in this silo, and I'm like, how you gonna beat the competition if you never study what they're doing? Like, and so the thing is, they find a way to be relevant year after year after year, cycle after cycle after cycle, and they understand that it changes. So what you did yesterday is not necessarily what's working today.
Well, here's what I will tell you about that. Republicans are some of the worst campaigners in the world. Here's where they beat you at. If one person anywhere in America wins a campaign, they study that campaign and they take all the working parts of it and incorporate it. That's all they do.
So what you're saying is they basically use the best practices technique.
No, not even that far. So I give you an example. Terry McAuliffe ran in Virginia for governor. He got beat.
Right.
The winning message was critical race theory, weak on foreign policy, and the other issue of inflation. That's how I know what they're gonna run on, because that's what that guy won on. They're gonna run that same play. It's just like when your dad was a high school football coach. He ran that T-42 until you stopped it.
Right. Right.
Very true.
That's true. I mean, it's so true. It sounds so simple that I'm just baffled sometimes about why we don't get it. But I often, even in our office, we got a lot of generations represented, and I often will ask Kennedy a lot, and she'll hear me. I said, "Now, what did you hear me say?" Because I know what I heard myself say, but what did you hear me say? Or I ask Ms. Jones the same thing. What did you hear me say? And it's always different. It's always different. So it's important to ask that question so then you can clarify and to make sure that the message you want to get at is what's actually penetrated. And we don't do that. We don't do that extra step, right? We don't do that. And it shows. It shows.
Yes. So this bill is on the governor's desk. I want to say hopefully, but it will most likely be passed.
100%.
But
Kennedy, let me ask you a question. Is it true? I thought I read in your notes. Is it true that there were like 17 Democratic amendments and they all failed?
yes, because I was reading through the article as well. Yes. So it's just, at this point, oh yes, Miss Owen, she said exactly. Getting the right message to people who vote will always make an impact.
every
Yes.
time,
And making sure that we get more people to vote is even a bigger impact.
every time.
That's the
Yeah.
bigger impact.
So here's one note on that. Here's where Democrats are losing right now, and they got to get it together.
Mm.
January 6th is now in congressional investigation and probably criminal investigation by the Department of Justice. However, Mr. Trump and the Republicans are still working grievance politics. Now, we know it's all untrue. We know it's all untrue. And somebody's probably going to go to jail because they know it's untrue too. But they don't care. They know that if they can rile their people up and get them mad, it's a better chance that they will go and vote.
I mean, but the facts have proven that to be true. You
Yes,
can look at the
they
last
have.
presidential election. The whole campaign strategy was just that.
Not even that. January 6th is another prime example.
They just underestimated how many black and brown people would actually come out to vote in early voting. And they just fell a little bit short. But if you look at election day itself and the turnout they generated, they did what they expected to do. So, and they always do.
Yep.
Blind
And
leading the blind.
elections are won and lost on those margins. And so while we're talking about the component parts of the messaging, they are tinkering with the process by outright passing bills that are voter suppression, voter elimination, because they're trying to keep the margins just a little bit closer so they can get their people just a little bit more riled up in hopes that they can get the majority.
Well, and let me tell you something. I don't know how these, I got a chance to see and experience the new voting laws live and how it worked in person in Texas this primary. Texas was one of the early states that after the presidential election, they reformed all the voting laws, right? So basically, it's going to be problematic. And I can say that because number one, the way they have done it now, if you're a person that really doesn't like to be bothered a lot, just want to go vote and get out, yeah, that's not happening. That's not happening anymore. I mean, you are literally, you can't even park your car and somebody is on you. And I mean, I think by the time I made it into the voting place, I probably had 3 pounds of stuff. That's one thing. Then with the poll watcher law now, they can literally be in the voting space.
Wow.
There's clearly there are things they can't do, but they can do a lot more than they used to be able to do. So they literally can be in there watching. They can't say anything to you. They can watch. They can't
which is borderline intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a part of subverting or suppressing the vote. They want to keep it down just low enough to make, they're trying to make people frustrated. They're trying to make people disinterested because they know that based off of those numbers that you were talking about, they can't really win another national election unless they take drastic measures, unless they cheat. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because of the new processes, what normally would take me, even at its worst, it takes me 30 minutes to vote. This time it took me an hour. So the lines are longer, the process is slower, and we all know what that's about.
Yeah. And they took away the early options because what they used to be good at winning, now they're losing. So now we can't get,
Well, we still have the early option here, but they did take away, like churches can no longer, they changed the way they can promote it.
Right.
They can't do like from the pulpit, let's go to the poll.
Right.
At the church, right?
Well, that's what I mean by taking it away. They have changed it so much. Like Texas had drive-through voting. That's
right.
Yeah. And then souls to the poll. Yeah. And then curbside voting. Yeah, you know.
And they still have the drive-through. I haven't tried the drive-through voting. They still have it, but it's
Good
not
luck.
in the early voting no more. I don't think. I think it's only like the day of on
Yes.
voting day. Well, who wants to stand in the? That's a long line.
Right.
So I don't know. The bottom line, Georgia's going to be key again. There's a lot of states that are going to be key as we look at the cycle and what's at stake in this midterm.
Yes. And like Ms. Owens said, they did reject a lot of mail-in votes too. So that's why it's important for us to be even more aggressive at the polls. So it's no slip-ups. No, I didn't get or anything of that such. So
Well, and here's the other thing, Kennedy, and I'm going to take it back old school. I think this is something you guys can do on campus that can be very helpful. Charles will remember this. This group actually started as a book club called Black Pride. And literally, we were broke college students. We wanted to read and buy autobiographies, but you might have enough money to buy one. So we buy a book, we read it, we share the book, pass it on, we come and we talk and discuss the books. So it was a book club back then, but it was a book club with a young people's flair and flavor, right? And then we had a whole mic about it. So it was cool. Well, that turned into a grassroots organization that led a movement. But one of the things I learned in that was when there was elections, we researched every candidate, talked about the pros and candidates based on their platform, what they stood for, looked at their experience, and really educated ourselves to make educated vote. And then we promoted informational sessions to talk about it so people could really understand. Because the other thing we don't do a good job of is doing our homework to understand when you walk, if you're making up your mind who you're going to vote for as you're in the voting place, that's too late.
exactly.
Do that research before you even get there. And we don't do that as a whole. And I don't know what you guys do in terms of your millennials, but I can tell you, even in my generation, we don't typically.
Very true. So y'all heard it here. Make sure y'all pay attention. You be educated about the people that's running, making sure that y'all actually go out and vote because it matters, especially the time is now. Like Mr. Peter said, Georgia is definitely all eyes are on Georgia for sure. So, all right. I also wanted to move into how recently it happened this past Thursday, but the ex-officer Brett Hankinson was found not guilty of endangering Breonna Taylor's neighbors in the botched raid. And the jury acquitted Mr. Hankinson this past Thursday on all 3 accounts of felony wanted endangerment in the botched raid that left Breonna Taylor dead.
Are you surprised, Kennedy?
In a way, yes, because I honestly thought this one at least would go through.
Why? I'm being serious. Tell me your why.
Because it was just prime example. They went and raided the wrong house.
Right. So then the charges were wrong.
Right.
The charges were wrong. And they were intentionally wrong based off of the investigation and the slow playing, withholding of evidence by the Black Attorney General.
Yeah.
Somebody did a poll on social media, and I'm going to show you. Here's a good example of what I call sound bites and putting messaging out there. They did a poll that simply said, I wish I could find it, simply said, the charges, do you think the officer, and it referred to Officer Brett, do you think he's charged for in the murder of Breonna Taylor, or is he charged for something else? And an overwhelming majority, like 92%, thought he was charged for the murder. He was never, that wasn't what the charge was.
Nope.
The charge was him endangering neighbors of Breonna Taylor. See, so he was never, and I don't think people got that. That's why the outrage was there, because we knew it was bogus charges when they made them. Like, that's not the issue.
Yeah,
That's another issue.
Yeah.
That's not the main thing.
No, that's not the
Exactly.
main thing. And so you let a little time pass by, and that's why you get the results of that survey you got. Because people are focused on the bigger picture item of her death due to police overreach and negligence and a whole host of things. Exactly. Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors.
So then
Yeah.
they slow play, no play, botch the investigation, and then they get cover from the Attorney General's office and saying, "Oh, we're going to charge him with 3 counts of endangerment." So that sounds
Sounds
Scary.
great.
Yeah.
But we didn't read the fine print.
Right.
3 counts of endangering Breonna Taylor's neighbors.
Right.
Not her.
Not her. Not even her fiance. Her neighbors, because they're saying there was some of the bullets went in the neighbor's apartment. But I knew as soon as I saw those charges from the Attorney General, I said I knew what this result was going to be.
Right. I mean, it was very predictable.
It was a setup to clearly
Very
say
predictable.
those shots were found in his line of action of defense as he was responding to shots fired at him after officers had been shot. I knew what that was going to be. It was a clear setup.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping for, I guess when I read it, I'm hoping for at least be accountable of the major actions that you've done. So I thought at least he would be guilty for 1 charge. But even with George Floyd being on camera, granted, yes, those officers are now guilty. It still took a tedious process for them to come up with a decision, get the evidence all together. So it just shocked me when I saw that today. I was just like, really? And it happened yesterday.
Why? I mean, here's where I want you to really catch what Charles and I are trying to point out to you. Why? Because your outrage really should have been in the charges that were filed.
Yes.
Because the charges that were actually filed never had a chance of actually holding up.
Right.
So you're outraged. The fact that you're outraged about what just happened means you didn't understand what happened by the Attorney General's actions.
Yeah, I'm seeing it now.
And that's the big problem. That's the bigger problem. I want you to educate yourself and your peers. Look, they just tricked you to thinking the side thing was the main thing. Right. They got all of everybody's eyes off of the main thing and on the side thing, and then they just roll it around.
Exactly. So yeah, I definitely see it now. I definitely do. It's just sad to see it happen in your face when you just think that at least, especially I think with this case, like all skin folk and your kinfolk, it's just not that. Miss Owen said, also a regular person, logically, if the police were at the wrong place and started shooting, they should have been guilty. Legal cases have different standards.
Well, it's not so much that they have different standards. This is more about the facts meeting the crime. So when they charged him with endangerment of the neighbors, that created an instant defense of I was firing my weapon in defense of myself and other officers because the officer was shot. It took the focus completely away from the fact that they killed the black lady who was not involved in anything.
Right. She was asleep.
Yeah.
Sleep.
So it takes the focus away from, so it makes you focus on the outcome of her death when that was never the issue that was being tried in the first place. And 2, it helps the defense that the facts are more favorable to the outcome that was granted by the jury.
Yeah.
So, like Willie said, and that's what we do this for. She said, I didn't understand, but I do now. And that's the point. I want you to go back and educate people and inform them of this. And that's why I always said, we have to learn how to read the fine print. We have to learn how to read the fine print, and we don't do it. I can't tell you how many times we sign something. We don't read the fine print. There's nothing wrong with saying, let me take a minute
to read.
Well, in this case, the fine print was created by the AG's office on purpose. So it wasn't a matter of not reading it. There were those of us who spoke out about it at the time, but he wasn't changing it.
Right.
because the investigation had been handled in such a way that it made it almost impossible to get to the charges that were necessary.
I think the narrative for us can never change. It can never be silent. You know, we
That's
have
right.
to keep that voice, keep that narrative, and all our media focus and educate. We have to constantly be educating. Like we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the fact that we're outraged, but we don't explain why we're outraged
Right.
a lot of times. And so what happens is to those of us or people that understand it, we assume everybody else does. But that's not always the case. Like if I don't do that, and I don't understand that, right? So you got to break that down, and we don't always do a good job of that. We know you're mad. We know we're supposed to be mad, but if anybody ever had an intellectual conversation with me and challenged me on it, then I wouldn't be able to explain why I'm mad. And so what I say is to that we're not able to have deep conversations of substance that can move people and move the narrative and provoke action. Because once we get challenged intellectually, because we don't have the substance of the debate, we have nowhere else to go. So we just fold.
Very true. Very, very true. Yes. So hopefully they definitely informed me, guys. So hopefully they informed you guys more to just recognize the smoke and mirrors and read the fine print in a lot of these next cases, a lot of these bills. It's just I feel like the political arena right now and the environment is like so important to pay attention to now. It's some people may take it lightly, but it is very important to pay attention to and be aware. So, because it's always like I've always said it, the quickest way to change in your community is by your local change, by local elections and working forward and making those bigger steps. So, I just wanted to put that out there. Now, on to, I know you guys are very big sports fanatics.
That's an understatement.
Right.
So I wanted to know, is March Madness? Have you guys thought about doing a bracket yet? Any predictions or?
Well, most of the conference tournaments will have to play out. Brackets won't come out until after the selection show.
Right.
So that'll be after the tournaments for every conference. And those are started, and they'll finish up this weekend or next weekend. Next weekend.
Next weekend.
Yeah,
Because the swing tournament is next weekend.
Yeah, they'll finish up next weekend. Then the selection show will be Saturday and Sunday. No, Sunday and Monday.
Sunday and Monday. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the girls are Sunday and the boys are Monday.
Yeah.
All right. You have any teams you feel like you know for sure gonna be on the selection though? You feel like it's without a doubt?
Jackson State women.
Yeah. And before we say that, let me say this. Look, we're gonna need, if I was in Jackson, I would be there. I'm not, but we're gonna need every single body to come out. I'm gonna ask Charles to break down how this whole SWAC tournament plays for the number one seeds to buy and all of that, because I thought the number one seeds don't play in the first round, but maybe they do. And if they do you realize that we're probably gonna have to turn around and play UAPB again in the first round? Like, I don't listen. UAPB is one of those teams I don't want to see them again. Like, listen, they're well coached.
Yes.
They have athletes, and Lord, that number 25, she couldn't miss last night. I mean, we talking about midway through the third period. She's 7 for 10 for 3-point land. That's 70%. Who does that?
Okay, so here we go. For the women's tournament, and this is exactly what I told you. Game 1 is the 7 seed versus the 2 seed. Game 2 is the 8 seed versus the 1 seed. And then the women's 6 seed versus 3 seed, 4 versus 5.
Yeah, and that's my concern, because right now, as it stands, the number 8 seed is UAPB, and the number 1 seed is Jackson State.
Yeah, and what I will tell you, Leslie, is it really doesn't matter, and here's why. That Jackson State's team is built for this particular moment in time. I understand UAPB has good players. They don't have enough.
Very true. Because when I went to the Southern game, I want to say a couple of weeks ago, and they was just no, it was against FAMU. They was just switching out all five, and the game was still going.
Yeah.
Third string, and the girl's still holding it down.
Listen, oh yeah, the FAMU game, yeah, but UAPB game is always close. It's always close.
Well, I mean, you're not gonna beat teams by 40 right now, but this is why you play a tough pre-conference schedule to get ready for times like these. And you can't really run from anybody in this way.
True.
You can't.
Yeah, listen, I've got to give shots. I'm trying to think of the young lady's name. I need to look it up because I want to call her right and give her credit. Because if you're not a women's basketball fan, you need to watch Jackson State, and I promise you, you will be. Myra Crump. Oh my goodness, Maya Crump. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. She's like a female highlight reel.
Yeah, so I'm looking at what you feel like concerns you. Both teams got off to a slow start in the first quarter. That's why the game was close. And then UAPB went on a little run. Khadijah Brown led them with scoring. Let's see. Let me look at the box score a little bit.
Yes, that's the she hit all those threes.
Let me see.
I'm also trying to see. Mr. Britton said, "Who has won the men's SWAC regular season championship?"
Alcorn.
Oh,
Alcorn won the men's regular season SWAC championship.
Wow. Kudos for them.
Yeah, Alcorn is a intriguing team. At the beginning of the season, I think they were picked to be 8th.
7.
Wow.
They were picked 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
And fought back.
Yeah. So
Literally.
let's see. Let's see here.
I gotta give credit to Alcorn. I mean, they have done it. They've been.
I mean, Liz, I'm looking at what you're saying.
Yeah, but listen, I'm not an Alcorn fan, but I'm saying
no. I'm not talking about Alcorn. I'm looking at these women's scores. I mean, UAPB was like, this wasn't a good shooting game, period.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and Jackson State really didn't shoot the well because Deja Rogan was off. She was off. In fact, just about everybody was off. Like from the outside, we just didn't shoot well last night. So we had to really work. We had to work for those points. Yeah. And they did.
They did. They fought back because they were down at the half.
Well, there just really is no answer for Amisha. Is it Anisha or Amisha?
Amisha.
Yeah.
No answer.
Amisha. So, I mean, your consensus pick on the ESPN women's sports page is Jackson State. Well, and it's not because we Jackson State fans. It's because one, Amisha Williams is such a force that if you slant your defense to her and you want to double her, then that means Rogan, Crump, Sims,
all of them are open.
Yes, and then I'm trying to think. I'm looking for names because Jackson State is absolutely low.
Oh, Woodard is the other one you're thinking about.
Yeah, Deja Woodard. But no, I was looking for Ja Covington. So on any other team in the SWAC, Ja Covington would be the starting point guard.
That's true.
She's not. Because Rogan came back for an extra year.
That's true.
So when you have that type of depth, I mean, you would have to have a terrible night, which they had against on that Texas swing. Texas Southern. They had a bad night all around against Texas Southern. Texas Southern had a good night. So it's not that it can't be done. It's just probability wise, I don't see it happening.
Yes.
But I tell you what, here's the one thing you know about this team. This team believes they're supposed to win and they expect to win. And they play like that. They never get rattled. They are champions. But we must remember they're champions.
I mean, but have Have you ever watched one of their games and paid close attention to Coach Reed in the huddle?
Mhm.
Then I would play like that too. Because
Yeah. He's intense.
she is quite intense and she believes in defense. The
Yes.
more interesting, I mean, they play tomorrow against Valley. But the more interesting thing about this game tomorrow on the men's side is Coach Brenner's retiring, Lindsey Hunter's getting fired. So it's basically it's a bull junk game in my opinion.
Wait a minute. That's out already?
Yeah,
Right.
both of those things,
okay.
both of those things are out. Yeah. So it's rumored that Mo Williams, the coach at Alabama State, will be the next coach at Jackson State. That's what's being floated right now in all the news outlets.
We'll see if that's gonna happen. We'll see for sure.
Yeah, because Lindsey Hunter is on administrative suspension by the university. He and his assistant coach, so they have an interim coach already. And then Coach Brent announced before the Alcorn game at Alcorn that he was retiring.
Wow. Listen, it's time to revamp. And that's what's gonna happen.
It's necessary. It's necessary because if you look at the direction that the SWAC is trending, and I was surprised you didn't have this on your list, but the commissioner has reached out to Tennessee State. Now I don't think they're coming, but he has. He's opened the door to them. It would be a smart move for them to come.
Wow, Max, for the SWAC? I mean, for the Southern Heritage Classic?
No, to come into the SWAC as a member institution.
Oh, wow. I actually did not. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It would be smart for them to do it, but the question is, will they?
I think the administrative people see Tennessee State as something that it's not. They thinking about these big FBS conferences, but when your average attendance is 4,000 to 7,000, that's not really all that attractive.
It's not.
Yeah.
And then you look at their attendance versus SWAC attendance, and you take Jackson State out of the equation. I can think of
four other schools.
Four other schools that I rank them in attendance.
Right.
4 other schools still.
Yeah.
By a lot. That's
by a lot.
FAM, Southern, Alcorn, and
Grambling.
Dude, they don't even
Grambling.
They don't even beat out Valley. Like
yeah.
They didn't beat out Valley. Like
So I mean, it seems like to me they're missing the forest for all these trees that's right in front of them. But hey, what do I know?
No, yes. But this is always intriguing talking to you guys about sports because y'all are both always very passionate about this. So I definitely want to put this on today's list. I definitely wanted to remind people to definitely start filing your annual business reports. The time is coming. March is going to go by pretty fast. It's here. It's time. So please don't wait till the last minute. Irvin can definitely help you with that as well.
Because we've had this happen. No matter how much I remind customers and clients about your annual report, if you have a corporation or LLC, state of Mississippi, you must file an annual report. And when you don't do that, they will revoke your corporation or your LLC. It's a simple process. If you don't want to do it, you can hire us to do it. We'll take care of it, but you must do it. Not doing it will result in it costing you more to reinstate it.
Not only that, the liability
you got.
If something happens and your license has been revoked by the state of Mississippi, then you have 100% liability.
Because guess what you're considered if that's the case?
A sole proprietor.
So it's important, y'all. Pay attention. Okay, so I definitely wanted to say that. Also, reminder, just remember to join our credit group, the Irvin Law Credit Group. We're always giving out tips. Mr. Peters always giving out tips.
We busting out tips every week. Every Thursday we put out tips. This week we put out tips on the 1099 Cs that you are receiving during tax time. how to make sure they're accurate, how to make sure those are not incorrect, and you're not paying taxes on something
I'm
you
gonna put
shouldn't.
my email
We
in
covered
there.
that in credit tips. If you want to get the free tips, join our Facebook group, the Urban Law THEE Credit Corner, THEE Credit Corner, and join our Facebook group so that you can get that information. And just this week, I heard from one of our members that the information we shared in the group actually saved her and her husband a lot of money because
Wow.
little did they know that he would be involved in an accident. Car was totaled. They had to buy a new car. So just a tip we shared about when you go to the car lot, specifically requesting that they only source your credit out to one vendor, so you don't get all those hits. And so, guys, we're giving out the tips. Make sure you take advantage of that right there on Facebook, the Credit Corner. Join our Facebook group.
Yes, guys. So this wraps up the show. Any final words, Mr. Peters and Dr. Irvin?
No, Kennedy, I'm gonna do something unique. I think your voice is so powerful. I want you to give the final words and speak to your demographic. The floor is yours.
Some final words I would like to say is be socially aware. Try ignorance is not bliss, so educate yourself even more than you think you are educated. Join our credit group because we're giving out tips left and right. And it's definitely important for my demographic to make sure we start off with a great credit, especially after graduating from college, so we can start on the right foot. And wear your mask. 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 Get vaccinated and wear your mask. Jackson State is giving out free vaccinations and boosters. So please be aware. It's no excuse at this point. So those are definitely my final words.
So Kenny, I have to ask this. Are you saying wear your mask even though we have all these announcements that you don't have to wear it anymore?
Yes, I'm still saying
wear
your mask.
Why are you saying that?
Because you're still protecting yourself and others, and you still can spread the virus even if you feel like you can't. Whether you're I'm vaccinated and I got the booster. I'm double. I'm straight, but I still want to wear my mask to protect others. So it's definitely important. So make sure y'all do that. Y'all have a happy Friday, y'all. Bye, Irvin Law family. Ah.